What's up, peers, and welcome to the World Crypto Network. Here back at the Breaking Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam, where we will try to break Bitcoin, hopefully succeed to right then fix it again, so that it's stronger. The Honey Badger. We are joined here today by two heroes of Bitcoin and Bitcoin education. John Newbery, how are you doing?
Very well, thank you.
Oh, very nice for joining us here today. Perfect. And we have Adam Jonas. What's up?
How's it going?
Oh, perfect. Okay, so how do you like the conference so far?
Great.
Yeah, I think it's been great. Some really good talks, and yeah, it's good to see the community come together. So.
Yeah, right. How did you like the talks? Were any of them particularly interesting?
Yeah, I thought Cardon did a great talk on reproducible and bootstrappable builds for Bitcoin. Jonas Nick's talk was good, always is.
Yeah.
There was a talk about breaking hardware wallets this afternoon. That was great. What else? Yeah, a bunch of good talks.
Yeah, that is true. And I also enjoyed the conversation with the peers that are here. It really helps to get everyone in one room and for the brainstorming and everything. It makes sense, right? You also were at the Core Dev meetup beforehand, right?
Yep.
How was that? How was the experience here really with the in-depth workshop?
Great, yeah. That's the third one, or fourth, or fifth one I've been to. We do them about every 6 to 9 months, get together for 2 or 3 days, talk about the process of Bitcoin Core, what people are working on, and yeah, it's great to be in the same room with these people that we work with, like remotely throughout the year, but we only get a chance to see each other maybe once or twice a year, and that face-to-face time really helps.
Yeah, absolutely, right. The face-to-face, it's much more communicative and interactive, absolutely. So, Jonas, what was the portion here from talking with each other and really coding and in-depth working on the code base?
You're referring to the core meetup?
Yeah.
So I actually wasn't there for much of it. I did catch a couple talks, one about Assume UTXO, which is what James O'Barron's been working on, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, I wasn't there for much of it.
Then how do you say, how much is it coding, really active work, and how much is the communication?
Mostly talking. You know, we code. We have all year to code, but we can only talk face to face in these 3 days. So I think Sipper said that he didn't open his laptop for 3 days, which is great. But yeah, just like catching up on people's ideas and proposals. So things like Taproot, obviously, but also things like Calais is working on a signed testnet. James is working on Assume UTXO. You know, people are working on different things, and they're on their own, like coding things up, and it's just once a year that you get to actually talk about them and see what people are working on. But we also talk about the process of Bitcoin Core, so you know, we're all remote, and it's sometimes difficult to know what other people are working on, or kind of find like common focus. That's the only way you get things achieved is when you get a critical mass of people working on the same thing. So like, to come together and talk about process and what people's priorities are, that's really helpful.
Yeah. So how did these couple days then affect your future work? Did it change your focus? Did you find something new that is interesting for the short term to work on?
I personally, I think that mostly spending my time in education, it's really important to understand sort of what's coming down the pipe. So just having a better sense of just what the status is of where Schnorr is, where Taproot is, what are the hurdles that still remain. That helps me just position those things as we're trying to develop a new wave of talent and a new set of contributors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. The education is vitally important. And of course, both of you with the OpTech newsletter, or the OpTech group in general, but especially the newsletter, provide a plethora of very, very valuable content that is really quite powerful to have. So what were the main reasons why you work on this and why you still continue to contribute?
Well, OpTech in general came out of the struggles of 2017, when there was a lot of strife in the Bitcoin ecosystem, as I'm sure you're aware, and there's the whole 2x thing. And coming out of that, I wanted to do something that was more constructive in terms of helping Bitcoin scale, rather than have people shout at each other about, you should make blocks bigger. No, you're trying to destroy Bitcoin. No, you're an enemy. That didn't really help us very much, I don't think. Maybe it pushed, tested the edges of what the consensus of Bitcoin is. But in terms of practical steps, technical things that we can do, there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit. A lot of exchanges still don't batch withdrawals. A lot of exchanges at the time didn't use SegWit, and some still don't use SegWit. And so we wanted to, and when I say we, I'm talking about myself, Steve Lee, James O'Byrne, who put together Optech, and John Pfeffer and Wences, who put the funding in. We wanted to do something that would help encourage businesses and help businesses to use and adopt these scaling technologies. And we came up with a bunch of ideas of how we would do that, and one of them was a regular newsletter on what the technical news is in Bitcoin, what's coming along, and what those businesses could use to improve scaling. I spoke to Dave Harding about how we would do that, and he volunteered to start writing them, and so he's been writing them ever since. It sometimes feels like we're along for the ride. He's providing all the content. We edit and send it out, but really the bulk of the work is Dave Harding, and I think it's a great resource for everyone.
Oh, absolutely. Quite a prolific writer, and always the details are always spot on. But that is, of course, thanks to the very good peer review that you have here. So it's not just a tweet just thrown out there. It's actually quite thoroughly reviewed. So how's the process for this?
Well, Dave puts it out on usually over the weekend or Monday, and then Steve and I review it, and if it's something particularly hairy like sig hash no input or op check output hash verify, we'll get the author of those proposals to do a final pass and make sure we haven't done anything glaringly wrong. So it's really a team effort. Yeah. And then of course you record it the next day and give it to everyone in audio form. So thank you for that.
Oh yes, for sure. That's really the cool thing about these open source education projects, that we can collaborate on this here. Right? And you provide the great technical knowledge that I couldn't phrase any better, and so why not the audio version? So I think that's a very good collaborative approach.
That's great.
So for the companies that you work with, what was the feedback so far?
So just to do some context setting, I'm pretty new to both Chaincode and Optech. I've been there for about 4 months. And so I would say the biggest initiative that I've worked on was the executive briefing that we did during Consensus Week. And that was something that when I first joined the team, I sort of talked to John about it, trying to reach a different kind of audience. If we're trying to truly bridge the gap between the decision makers of the business and sort of how the software operates, and trying to understand a roadmap and how that fits in with the business as it grows, I thought that trying to draw in that audience was something that was valuable. And so John actually sort of took that idea and applied it towards the Optech group, and we put together an executive briefing, which I thought was a great debut. So we talked about went a little bit further in depth about fees. Clearly, as a reader of the newsletter, there's a lot about fees, and that's a subject that matters a lot to the Optech crowd. And so sort of talking about what would happen as fees started to raise, and it just so happened that it coincided with a rise in fees, and so so that was good timing on that. We had Sergey Kotliar talk about just sort of using Lightning as a business, and he has the most experience of actually trying to run a business on Lightning, and a lot of sort of war stories about what works and what doesn't work. And then the last one was talking about sort of the coming soft forks. And so Steve Lee did a great job, I think, presenting what are these soft forks, and sort of how to think about them, sort of how to mentally compartmentalize them. And so trying to get that message out now, and talking about sort of the founding mission of trying to have better relationship with businesses to avoid a no 2x kind of scenario again. That really is, I thought, was a great way to start getting the word out about what these soft forks are, how it can help your business, and just generally just trying to open up a channel of communication both in the moment and getting companies to talk to each other, but also to keep that channel open in the future. So when things do become contentious, at least we can talk to each other about it and have fewer closed-door meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. The communication, the education is vitally important, especially for something as complex as Bitcoin, right? Where we really have to go into the details on how we can get more efficiencies. So John, where do you actually think now, how, with the current situation that we have, without any future changes to the code base, how much more efficient can we get just with how we are using the blocks now, and how we can, for example, with batching and all this?
There's a lot of low-hanging fruits, and there's not really right now any pressure for businesses to do this. It's quite low on their priority list because the downside, the cost is pretty low when fees are low. Now, if Bitcoin is to be successful, I think we all want to see more people using Bitcoin and more use cases from Bitcoin. And when that happens, there's competition for block space and fees will go up, and naturally users of the Bitcoin blockchain will be incentivized to make more intelligent use of the block space. Now, there's lots of ways they can improve now. Batching, so batched withdrawals from exchanges, or for frequent users of the blockchain, batched payments, so using one transaction for many payments. That's a very obvious one. Using SegWit, that gives you a discount because the witness is discounted. Intelligent coin selection, so you're not creating dusty outputs, small change outputs. Good fee estimation to make sure you're not overpaying. Replaced by fee, child pays for parents, so you can change the fee that you're attaching to transactions. Those are all quite substantial wins, but they're marginal, but can be quite large. For the next level, for the order of magnitude changes, you need things like Lightning, layer 2, and whatever those off-chain layer 2 technologies are. Lightning is obviously the most advanced right now, but I think we're just kind of really scratching the surface of what we can do off-chain, and that will be how we get those order of magnitude increases in efficiency of what you're using the blockchain for, and the amount of utility we can get from this kind of scarce resource.
Yeah. Okay, and so then of course working closely together with these companies here in the Bitcoin space, how do you experience their drive to use second layer technologies like Lightning or sidechains?
Well, there's I'd recommend that anyone who's interested watch that Sergey Kotlyar video. We linked to it in the last newsletter, but he gives some very compelling reasons why you might want to use Lightning. Of course, one obvious one is fees. You're not transacting on the blockchain, so you don't pay transaction fees. You pay routing fees on Lightning, but they're expected to be much lower than on-chain fees. So that's very obvious. Speed is another. Sergey likes to say that instant is infinitely faster, and that's really true when you're in a retail situation. You want a payment to be instant, within a second, because that's the experience you've come to expect when you're in a shop. The user experience is better in many ways because the way that invoices work in Lightning just cuts out a whole range of user experience issues like underpaying or overpaying or not paying enough fee or double payments or whatever. Lightning just abstracts all of that away. So, many very compelling reasons that businesses should adopt Lightning.
Fantastic, okay. And then you also work on educating the next phase of coders, right, with the Chaincode Labs residency. And that is about to start.
Yeah.
Right? So is this going to be your first experience of residency?
So I was lucky enough to sit in as an auditor of the Lightning residency that John ran in October, and yeah, this has been something I've been working on for about 4 months, and that started with sort of opening applications and just sort of meeting the community that applied. Had a lot of conversations and just met a lot of great people and understood a little bit more about sort of what the demand is like. This one in particular is pretty focused on protocol development, so as opposed to the Lightning residency in October, which was more about Lightning app development, this is dropping down the protocol layer, and we are supporting both protocol development for Bitcoin itself, as well as the Lightning implementations. And so yeah, we are, I think we have a pretty incredible lineup for the next 2.5 weeks. And then as we start to transition into July, the residents will be really more focused on shipping. Their goal is to ship something by the end of the summer, nice. Something substantial, really sort of as individuals be able to move the needle on putting together a project. Mm-hmm. But in aggregate, I think having 9 of these projects, my hope is it will be this sort of burst of productivity where sort of where we open the conversation with people sitting in the same room exchanging ideas and helping each other out, even if they're not working on the same exact focus. That should sort of all propel us forward. Mm-hmm. So really excited about sort of how this experiment goes. Mm-hmm. I want to make this as open source and as transparent as we can be, because realistically we can't support the world coming to our office, but we can support sort of this smaller group, and then it's sort of baked into the experience that they will be communicating to the wider community as well. So giving back to the Bitcoin community is sort of what this is all about. And we've open sourced some of our study materials so far, so there's some study groups online. If you go to the Chaincode Labs GitHub org, there's something called study groups, and those are the things that the residents have actually already done to prepare to arrive in New York. Those will be paired with presentations and coding exercises, which we also will be releasing. Nice. And so the idea is that we can sort of package up some of these self-driven curriculum experiences so that the folks that we aren't able to keep and bring to the room will be able to recreate some of that, whether it's within their own community or as individuals. And we hope that this is sort of like the beginning of something larger that we can do for the Bitcoin community.
Very interesting. Yes, I really like the approach of recording a bunch of this and putting these out in different forms, articles or videos or lectures or whatever. That's very powerful, because again, this releases this knowledge out of the small group of 9 students, right? Yep. To then hundreds of, hopefully thousands of people, and not just today but in the future as well. So very powerful. John, how was your experience with the last couple residencies, and how did they evolve into what they're now?
I'm experiencing the residency in a new way this time, from the first residency back in 2016, which Matt ran, and I was a resident. There were 4 of us, and that was just something that Matt wanted to do. He wanted to, he saw a need there, and he wanted to provide a stepping stone for people who wanted to come and work on Bitcoin development. And so he created that himself. He did all of the preparation, all of the delivery himself. The second residency I organized. After getting hired by Chaincode, I decided that I wanted to continue it and improve it in whatever way I could and put my own spin on it. So I organized that one in 2018, last year, just over a year ago. And we had, I think, 12 residents over a period of a month. We had more external speakers coming in, tried to cover more topics, split it into 2 different sections so people could come for 2 weeks. Then there was the Lightning residency in October, November last year, which was 1 week on Lightning applications. And then this time around, we wanted to do something longer, so 3 months, so residents could come in and ship something, really deliver something, rather than come in for 4 weeks and then fill their brain up with something and then maybe not have the chance to apply that and actually create and deliver a project. So the thinking was we'd do a summer-long thing, and then we hired Jonas, and Jonas's background is in education. He was working at the Flatiron School and managing teams and projects there. So he has a lot of experience in putting together these programs, and so just having Jonas to do the hundreds of phone interviews and all the logistical preparation for the residents to come in and organizing speakers, this one is like another step again, and it's I'm really excited about it. We've got an amazing lineup of residents. Just really, really excited to have them working in the office. And yeah, the reusable material, the open source material, like we did that with the Lightning residency back in November. We put all those videos online.
Yeah.
But I think this time around we'll do an even better job, and that's really exciting.
Fantastic. Yes. Really, really good, really important that you do it. And thank you, of course, for all that. This open source work is really, really important. But I also think that Chaincode is a very interesting also funding model of how to pay for this very important and very difficult and very critical development. So how your experience here with having such a funding model behind these open source ventures?
We're just very fortunate. Having started digging into Bitcoin in 2015 and becoming obsessed with it and wanting to spend my days working on it, I found myself in a place where I get paid to work on something that I find fascinating and love. And so I feel very lucky that Chaincode exists. It's, like you say, it's unique. That we have private funding from the founders to just work on what we think is important.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say that having worked in sort of the startup world for a little bit, and previously having worked in a totally different space, I think not having the pressure to really produce revenue and produce products sort of we're not beholden to anyone, gives us the freedom to explore the things that we feel are important. And truly, you look at the people in the office and sort of the different directions that they go. It's so self-driven, and that is just unique in the world. I mean, forget Bitcoin. It's just in the context of having to support yourself or support a family or support just a cost of living like in New York. To have the freedom to actually pursue the things that you feel are important, both on that day or that week or that year. Yes, we are very lucky.
Perfect. Yeah. No, this is fantastic. I really think this is a good way that people who were fortunate with Bitcoin and now have the capital available give back to the community in the sense of fixing the problems that we have. Because that, again, is beneficial not just to Bitcoin as an ecosystem or necessarily Bitcoin the currency, but also then to the individuals, again, using this monetary system. So I think it's a very interesting approach to solve some of the problems we have here with funding a very expensive open source development. Okay, fantastic. Are there any last words that you would like to share with the peers about all the stuff that you do?
Subscribe to the Optech newsletter.
Yes.
bitcoinops.org. Follow Chaincode on Twitter. Chaincode Labs.
We don't do a lot of tweeting, but
we don't.
But we could.
But when we do have another residency, we'll tweet. That will be our annual tweet, and it will be a good one. So make sure you're following.
I think so. We are open sourcing a lot of these materials, and I would ask that if this is of value, that you contribute. So just like any open source project, open a pull request, add videos, add discussion questions. We want to. My vision on what this could be would be this community curated curriculum that evolves as the technology evolves, and where people both invest in making it as good as it could be, but also they are the people sort of in the know invest in making sure that that the people who are being onboarded are getting the best information that's possibly out there. So after, for example, the talks that are being released at this conference, I may go back and start adding things to some of the study groups or things like that, because they're constantly changing and constantly being updated. And so if this is of value, yeah, please give back, and please open pull requests and help curate.
Fantastic. Yes. I love the project. I'm looking forward to the residency. I will join in cyberspace and accumulate all this knowledge. So Piers, thank you very much for joining us today with John Newbery and Adam Jones from the Chaincode Labs and Optech newsletter. Thank you very much, and see you on the next show. Bye-bye.